Moving and a grooving. Well, shake it, baby, shake it, honey, please don't lose it. The rhythm that gets you to your heart and soul. Let me tell you, baby, it's called rock and roll.
We're very fortunate that we came up in what we call the Beatle era, because the Liverpool sound was the world famous sound. But this was terrific stuff. This was really good beat music. It was good to dance with. I mean, dances were dances then. You're talking about 4 hours of dancing, 5 hours sometimes. So you had to be good. We actually were very, very good.
So if you were doing a 9 to 2 gig, you started at 9 o'clock and you finished at 2 with a 20-minute break in the middle, and trying not to repeat any numbers. But if you're starting at 9 o'clock, you know, the place was half empty and the dance halls were freezing. You know, you could hardly feel your fingers until the crowd came in and warmed up the place.
Well, let me tell you, baby, it's called rock and roll.
The whole exchange of that, coming from the old time music, you know, into something that was extraordinary. People who are older than us, they just didn't buy it at all. So there was that sort of thing, that rebellious thing, because you know, which I think my older siblings didn't have. There was great excitement about that.
We had a, I think I'd say, we had a real gutsy sound, you know. We used to get a kicks out of numbers like My Generation and we letting our folks know this is our scene now, you know. Those are saying, how can you play that noise and all that? But I think we won in the end.
Well, come on, pretty baby, let's move it and a groove it.
I was, honest to God, in the band, I was really playing for myself to get the nicest sound and the nicest chords that I could get in the thing. And, you know, I didn't really give a damn what anybody else was doing, you know. That was the way I looked at it, still do.
We were playing covers when you were playing covers, but we were playing them bloody well. And the punters were loving it too, so it wasn't forging a career. We didn't view it like that at all. It was just a bit of fun. It was getting out, doing gigs on a Friday or Saturday night and getting a few bevies, playing the music which I loved and which the lads loved, and that was it.
And I will never ever forget it. Sex wasn't invented then, drugs weren't around, we had plenty of rock and roll.
Thank you.
At the late 50s, when rock and roll came on the scene, first of all, you have to remember that the skiffle era was sort of the 56, 57, 58 period, you know. Buddy Holly was on top of that. And we were all sort of 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. And this really grabbed us, it grabbed me. I mean, Rave On, and we all had little plastic guitars and ukuleles even. It was crazy.
Well, of course, my father played the violin, so there was music in the family right from as long as I can remember. And I think it was about maybe 12 years of age. Myself and Al got a guitar for Christmas. I don't know if we got one each or separately, but it was a plastic guitar with plastic strings. That's my earliest memory of playing any sort of a guitar.
get me down out of the way first. I suppose it might be true of all men of that era. I don't know that they were, there was no new men in those days. They were all drinkers and smokers and what have you. But he could play the fiddle or the violin or whatever. And he did, at some stage, make contact with me because to this day, there's I think it's Beethoven's Violin Concerto in D or something like that, and that is the most beautiful piece of music that I know. But he took the time to explain to me about the motif going on in that and how the pathos of the minor key and all that. And it's the only, I don't like classical music because I'm uneducated, but that particular one, he educated me with that particular piece, and it's beautiful and still love it, and I respect him for that.
Yeah, well, the scene in Dublin was really exciting at that time because you were coming out of the 50s, and I suppose the 50s was extraordinary because it was a very dismal time in Dublin, and all of a sudden around about 1956, 57, the whole explosion of the change in music came about. And I remember hearing in school about this radio station called AFN, which was the American Forces Network coming out of Germany, and you had the old Philips radio, valve radio, and you could just barely get a signal on it, and I just couldn't believe it because actually it was you hear about, you know, the hair standing up on the back of your neck, and that actually happened to me, and it was Elvis's first hit, and it was called That's All Right Mama. And after that I said, geez, I have to get a guitar.
Well, time for another number from the Cyclones, and this time it's John Byrne on vocals with More and More.
Around about the late 50s, maybe 1960, there was a whole change in the scene, especially in the Dublin area, and you had these beat groups coming along, and all these clubs, the beat clubs, opening up, and there were dozens of them around.
Keep on rolling, more and more, all the time, more and more, all the time.
You know, the new rock and rolly stuff that was coming in with electric guitar sounds, and you know, that appealed to us as rebellious teenagers, if you like, in those days. So, and there was a wealth of information in those early 60s years with the Stones, the Beatles, Chuck Berry, rock and roll stuff, Elvis Presley, you name it. When we got the band up and running and started to get gigs, then it was rather serious rehearsal.
We would rehearse quite a lot in my house, my mother's house in Braemar Road, in the sitting room, sometimes in the back garden if it was the summertime, or up in Don Byrne's house or Brian Wheeler's, or indeed the Brady's.
I remember we were learning the Harry Lime theme, and it was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Tricky enough at that age and at that level of experience to play. And my mother banging on the door would just cut that noise out and blah, 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 you know. Now, this particular time, she opened the door of the garage and she was standing there with her suitcases saying, I'm leaving. And she was serious. Dad had to run after her, we had to run after her. We'll stop. The Harry Lime team said, driving her insane.
So then we pretty much had a band, but we needed a singer. And I had been very pally with Brian because in fact, my first guitar I ever got was a small acoustic guitar, which my father bought off Brian for me for doing well in my leaving. I thought of Brian, approached Brian, said, listen, I'm in this little band here, would you be interested in...
I had done a kind of a basic song on a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and it was a Chuck Berry number called Sweet Little 16. And Don brought it along, he said, I know a singer, and they played that, and sure, for God's sake, how could they miss out on me?
I love the beat music more so than the show band stuff, because the show band stuff to me now very much country, you know. But with the beat group, it's very varying on the you have the blues and you have jazz mixed in with it, as well as the pop stuff, you know. I always like playing the beat club music, you know.
The new kids on the block always wanted this distinction that they weren't show bands, that they were beat groups. And it was mainly because of the instruments that they had, and the beat groups were mostly guitar bands, really guitar bands. But there was a real distinction and there was a lot of competition. And of course, you see, the show bands preceded the beat groups, and they were huge. They were absolutely huge, and they made fortunes. And all of a sudden, you know, the whole dynamic of the thing changed, and you had the beat groups coming in, and it literally, almost overnight, the show band scene really hit a brick wall.
The first time I walked into Marion Hall and I heard the band playing the Cyclones, I just got this tremendous thumping in my stomach from the bass and the loudness, and it wasn't noise, it was pure music, but all the amplification of the whole lot, it was all new to us, you know, it's new to me especially, but I thought it was an exhilarating feeling.
Mainly it was the fun, the crack, you know, to be up there on stage and having an audience and doing the job well and trying to recreate as best we could the sounds that we heard coming over from Radio Luxembourg. It was about the only source of pop music at night. When RTE radio went off the air, you could pick it up.
There was a lot of competition, and you had to learn your trade very well. And personally, I didn't particularly like being the front singer, you know, because throwing shapes, because I wasn't great at throwing shapes. Would have much preferred to have a guitar around my shoulder, you know, but that was the way it was. Yeah, so I mean, the longer you went on and the more gigs you did, the better you got really at your presentation of the thing. But technically, I think, you know, we went there with the knowledge and the expertise, and it was just a question: could you actually, you know, generate the charisma to get people on your side, you know?
Before we were going to start playing, it was a question of going into the bar and getting 2 or 3 points and lining them up. The stage was built in a corner up to about the window ledge. So the window ledge was here, but you'd be standing about up here, and you'd put your points on the window ledge. Right, we're all set to go, lads. Are you ready? Let's do this.
I can't remember exactly. I think it was a cricket club or a tennis club off Highfield Road in Rathmines direction. And it was a long timber building, and there was only one entrance to it. It was at one end of this long, narrow dance hall. At the other end, there was no way out except through the back wall. And being conscious of health and safety, even in those days, I always brought a pickaxe to that gig and stuck it behind the amplifier in case there was a fire down the other end and we had to get out.
At the interval, I'd have to change everything because the sweat was just, I was sitting down and a little ridge in the belly, there'd be water there, you know. So you'd change, and at the end of the evening, change again. Practically everything, yeah, because you were just so, you're playing for 4 hours. And it was hot, and it was rock and roll.
headmaster that we had taught maths, and he was a sadist. And he used to come in with his white collar and, Brady, have you your homework done? No, I didn't think so, and hand out and all this. And on the Saturday night that I'm talking about, we had a gig with the Searchers. And so he said, hand out, and now he knew what he was doing. And I said, no, please give me a, no, the other. So, and for being obstreperous, I got an extra helping on this hand, and he actually drew blood. I couldn't hardly play the guitar, but I had to be up there, Jesus, on a gig like this, the Searchers, and there's blood on the guitar in the photograph. That's a clear recollection, if that's any use to you. Very few recollections of it, but that's one that certainly stands out in my mind.
Chris, we let you know,
We knew we were savvy enough to know that we are good up to a point, but we didn't have what it would take to break through. We weren't writing songs, we were a good covers band, but we didn't have what it takes to make a breakthrough. And there were good bands there who are a lot better than us, who tried the breakthrough and didn't make it. Because, you know, it's a narrow window for success in that business.
Yeah, I think around 1970 or 71, I'm a bit unsure now. I had too many things in my life going on. I was studying in Kevin Street, electronics, and that was 4 nights a week. And I had 2 kids, and I was working hard to try and pay the mortgage and all that. So something had to give up, and reluctantly I decided it had to be the band.
And we weren't in it for the long haul, we weren't in it as professionals, so it wasn't forging a career where if you're going to start making money, you were going to have original material. We didn't view it like that at all. It was just a bit of fun. It was getting out, doing gigs on a Friday or Saturday night and getting a few bevies, playing the music which I loved and which the lads loved, and that was it.
I wouldn't have had it any other way. It was the greatest thing that ever happened. And I've often said to Liam that, you know, the music and the band and the camaraderie and so on that went with that was, you couldn't ask for better. It's a great hobby, and it was a great hobby.
I think it was 1967 when I left. There's other things I needed to do, you know, my own life as well. And I remember I came across a letter from the revenue commissioners, you know, wondering why we had made no returns. And at that stage, as a band had been broken up, obviously, so I wrote back to them anyway and told them, you know, they had nothing after that.
The whole scene had kind of changed at that stage, and we were playing at kind of hotel dinner dances and weddings and stuff like that, and you weren't playing what you started out playing, you know, and it was kind of soul destroying. So that's really what killed it for us.
All my fault, okay. Go ahead. They're really rocking in Boston, Pittsburgh, PA, in Manhattan, Texas, and around the Frisco Bay, way out in St. Louis, way down in New Orleans. All the cats are gonna dance with a sweet little 16, sweet little 16.
We had a great reunion, the 51st anniversary, which seems extraordinary, and we were all alive, which was even more extraordinary. And none of us were on wheelchairs or crutches, which was even more extraordinary.
I'm so excited. But you look at her on, boy. Oh, mommy,
I was absolutely thrilled that the lot of us could get together again for the reunion in Templeogue. And we spent a lot of time rehearsing that gig. It was like the pig in the python. Time moved on and the rock and roll still stays. And even generations later, they still respond to it.
Boston and Philadelphia, you're getting a heart attack just around the Frisco Bay.
I felt awkward, you know, that sort of way. I was delighted. Everybody seemed to be having a great time. I was saying, why? I don't understand it. It certainly meant a lot to me. I couldn't understand how it would mean a lot to everybody else. You know, I don't like the spotlight, all that.
Well, I loved it, and looking at all the photographs all over the wall and the little memorabilia, brought back a lot of memories of the people who actually went to see us play and remembered us in the old days.
All the cats gonna dance with a sweet little 16. Sweet little 16.
You know, some of the tunes were a bit hairy, so now we better go with that goes. But no, I think we pulled it off quite well on the night. We were happy enough with it.
I'm B-Sweet 16. I'm back in class again. With every rockin' in Boston and Philadelphia, PA. You've been a heart of Texas around the Frisco Bay. Way out in St. Louis, way down in New Orleans. All the cats are gonna dance with sweet little 16. Oh yeah!
Thank you very much and good night. Thank you.
It was great to do the reunion again and culminate in that and kind of see everybody again, and they're all still alive, and maybe go on and do a 60th. That'd be my dearest wish, that we'd all live to be able to put on a 60th, you know?
Well, Tom, we heard again from the Cyclones, so how about a slow number, boys?
What it's done for me, I think, is that I never, ever lost an interest in music. And there's hardly a day, I'd say, that I don't actually pick up a guitar and, you know, play.
And the memories are very important to me. I still love rock and roll music. I love jazz. I go to the opera.
Maybe it had its day. It's like the old bingo halls, you know. Used to have thousands of people going to bingo. I don't think that happens anymore. I don't know.
If there's a 60th reunion, well, maybe on the Zimmer frame and the stick or whatever.
I'm still learning, you know. There's some tunes that I never heard before, but it's great. Give it to me and I'll eat it up, you know.